Let's talk about keeping track of your business assets. Hi there, I'm Charlie, your online business manager and WordPress expert. My goal is to assist small to medium business owners build their businesses with a focus on using the internet and online technologies in an appropriate and cost-effective manner. People hire me to take the stress out of managing their businesses and allow themselves to focus on what they do best. And that's a great segue into today's topic. I had a contact from a VA friend of mine, a VA I've worked with, regarding one of her clients last week. The client had lost access to their emails and didn't seem to have access to their domain name, which they knew they had had previously. And I was being asked to give them a hand to do a little bit of forensics and investigations as to what might have happened. I've got some tools that I can use and some ways of doing some searches that can track how things might have changed over and when records might have been updated on certain things. It turns out that this client's business partner had perhaps and has perhaps done some pretty dodgy things. It's a little hard to tell at the moment. We're still going through the process, but certainly someone had been into the client's accounts and had migrated the domain name out of their account into their own account, had changed access to accounts and changed emails addresses on accounts so that they could no longer get access to them, had put two-factor authentication on anything, so even if they could get access, they couldn't get access because they didn't have the two-factor authentication available. There's a couple of other things that went down. The other thing that I found quite interesting in all of this was they had a search engine optimization guy, SEO guy, who had been doing work for them and had been asked to stop, and he refused to stop work for them. No, I'll keep going, I'll keep going. I would have been very firm at that point, and I'm sure the business owner was about, no, you can do the work, but you're not going to get paid. But during my investigation, I had found that the SEO guy had made themselves the registrant contact for the domain name. So their email address was on one of the domain names that they'd been managing. So my client couldn't get access to it at all. So that kind of brings me into the reason for this topic this week. It's really important as a business owner and as a business who supports business owners that you know where your business assets are. And when I'm talking about business assets in this respect, I'm talking about how do you access your hosting account? How do you access your billing for your hosting account? How do you access your emails? Do you know what contact email address is on any of those accounts? Your domain name. Is your domain name actually registered in your business's name or in your name? Is an email that you have access to registered as the contact email for your domain name? Or does it go to someone else entirely? Because if it goes to someone else entirely, you need to go to that person to get access to your domain name should things go south. And that to me is a really, really terrible thing. I actually did a fairly long-winded version of this in one of my first podcasts, where I had a client with this very similar problem. They just couldn't get access to their emails or their domain names. The registrar was or the reseller was being a pain in the neck. And we had to go through a whole heap of hoops to get access to all of her stuff so that she could become active again and she could keep her business running. So in the case of this client, what I found was that their email address was not the main contact email address on their domain names. That's probably the most concerning, well, it's not the most concerning thing, but one of the most concerning things that we found. And the domain names, whilst they were in their names, like in the business names, didn't have their email address on it. So it didn't matter if we wanted to gain access to it, if we wanted to move the client's hosting, if we wanted to change name servers, we couldn't because we didn't have access to those domain names. Their primary domain name had been moved out of their account and into another account, even though it was still registered to them. It had been moved out of their account and into another account, and we're still going through with the registrar as to how that was allowed to occur, because it shouldn't have been allowed to occur. It was on their account to begin with, and there was no approval sent through as to why. Well, I'm going to be careful. There were the client themselves did not receive the approval to the approval to move the domain name across. Now, if someone had access to change an email address and that email address got changed and then it got moved out, that's entirely possible. So it's all sorts of little things that add up to being really important and really big things that you as a business owner and those of you that support businesses need to be aware of. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to invite you all to my locals community. Being a business owner can be tough. Being a business owner who works remotely can get lonely and frustrating. I want my local community to be a bit like the old water cooler of old. Treat my community as a place where you not only get to interact with me, but with each other business owners and other people who work with business owners. You can gain inspiration from others, provide inspiration and advice, and of course, as subscribers, you'll be able to ask questions of myself. So come across and join me on Locals, askcharlyletham.locals.com. askcharlyletham.locals.com. And back to me. So let me ask you, if I was to come to you as a new provider and say, okay, you want me to help you manage your domains and we need to move your hosting. You're having trouble with your hosting. We need to move your hosting. What's your logins? Do you know how to access your hosting account? Do you know how to access your billing accounts? Do you know how to, where your domains are registered? And do you know how to access those domains if you need to? If the answer to any of that is no, you do need to find that out and you need to get it documented and saved off somewhere. Now, my general recommendation, sorry, I'll slow down a little, is to keep a document with all of this information in. I actually use a password manager and I store all this information in a password manager. But aside from that, I'd also recommend that you either keep a little notebook. Now, where is it? Do I have it here? Yes, I do. See, I have this little notebook. It's got RMCC passwords on it. It's one of my clients. I'm creating this for one of my clients. A little notebook where I'm writing all of the passwords and all of the accesses down and where you get information from, where you find information, so that if I'm not around, someone else can pick it up and say, that's where she's done it. Now, when I say I'm not around, it might be just that I'm busy. It might be that I'm traveling, or it might be that I get ill and I'm not able to actually run my business. And if I can't run my business, someone else needs to be able to step in to either take it on and run it or to hand it over to someone who can. So that's my responsibility to my clients. Not only to myself, but to my clients, is to make sure that I have some continuity in place. But the responsibility you have to yourself as a business owner and someone who runs their business is to make sure that you know where all this information is, so that if, heaven forbid, things go south with a business partner or a provider or a service provider that you're using, you can move, and you can move relatively easily and quickly without having to go through a whole heap of hoops. Now, for this poor client that I'm working with at the moment, we've determined where most of their stuff is. We've determined the contact emails for most of their stuff. Now we have to go through the process with each of the service providers to gain access back to most of that information, or most of those services. Those services, whilst they're paying for them, they don't have access to them. We need to now go through and fill out letters and fill out forms and send in requests and prove that we are who we say we are, and prove that we have access, like that we should have access to this domain or this hosting or whatever it is, so that they can conduct their business as they need to. As you can imagine, it's costing them a little bit for me to work with them to do it. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, fortunately, I have to charge to do it. That's where my business is. That's how I put my food on my table. More unfortunately, is it's taking time out of their day that they could be using to bring more money through the door for themselves. They're having to take that time and spend it on something that is, for all intents and purposes, unproductive for them. It still needs to be done though, because without it, they're not going to be able to go forwards. So get yourselves a notebook, printouts, whatever, create a folder, put all of your sensitive information into that folder and put it into a filing cabinet or a file box or a box under your desk where you have all of your important documents and information for your business. Get yourself a password manager. Put all your login details into the password manager so that you can find it quickly and easily when you need to. If you want advice on password managers, I can certainly provide some of those. I actually really like Zoho Vault at the moment. It's fantastic. And I am a long-term user of RoboForm, and they're my two go-tos. Actually run them parallel, which is interesting in itself, but I do run them parallel. But get yourself a password manager and make sure you have hard copies of all of your documents, because if records change, at least you can go back and say, but I've got this hard copy here and this is what it said at the time. Okay, so come across and join me on Locals, please. Ask charlyleatham.locals.com and continue this conversation there. Remember to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and ring the notification bell so you get notified when I drop more content. And of course, leave some comments below about your own experiences about losing information or finding information or keeping information, and how that's, well, first of all, did you have troubles with it? And if you didn't, and it actually saved you, how did it save you, and why were you grateful that that's what you did? Have a great week, guys. Bye.